If you are feeling a little breathless right now, trust me, you are not alone.
Yeah, it's been a lot.
We're recording this in the first week of March 2026, and honestly, it feels like history is being written in all caps, like bold font and underlined.
It certainly does. I mean, we often talk about eventful weeks on this deep dive, usually when, a couple of big tech stocks move or there's an election somewhere.
Right.
But what we are witnessing right now is a convergence of events that usually happen maybe once a decade, and they're all crammed into about 72 hours.
Exactly. I was looking at the stack of sources we have in front of us today, and it's heavy, physically heavy.
A lot of paper.
Yeah, it feels like the entire world decided to just change direction over the weekend. We have live breaking news reports about a massive geopolitical explosion in West Asia, like a literal war involving major powers. And we have financial data screaming that the markets just had a Black Monday, which is never a headline you want to wake up to.
And yet on the other side of the desk, we have these diplomatic press releases about a historic reset with Canada.
Right, the Carney visit.
Exactly. Plus, we have detailed economic analyses of the Union Budget 2026-27, which is trying to essentially fix the plumbing of the economy.
Yeah, and just to make things even more surreal, we have reports on a celestial phenomenon that hasn't happened in a century.
The lunar eclipse coinciding with Holi.
It's like the universe decided to throw everything at us at once: war, money, diplomacy, and the cosmos.
All at the exact same time.
So our mission today is pretty ambitious. We are going to try and synthesize all of this source material for you. We want to understand how these seemingly disparate things are actually shaping the narrative of India right now.
Because it is a lot of noise. But our job is to find the signal for the listener.
Okay, so let's unpack this. And to you listening right now, our fellow learner, if you're feeling information overload from scrolling through the headlines, just take a deep breath. We are going to sort this out together.
Let's take it step by step.
Let's start with the elephant in the room, or rather the explosion in the room, the geopolitical shockwave coming out of West Asia.
This is definitely the immediate crisis.
Yeah.
The sources we have, specifically the live updates from the Times of India and the Indian Express, are painting a very grim picture.
Yeah.
We are looking at what is being described across the board as a catastrophic escalation.
Catastrophic is a word that gets thrown around a lot in 24-hour news cycles, but looking at the reports, it actually feels justified here. Let's look at the facts on the ground. We have confirmation of joint U.S. and Israeli airstrikes on Iran.
Yes.
But I want to pause on the specifics because this isn't just about blowing up a runway or a radar station, is it?
No. And that's the real game changer here. The reports are confirming the death of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, along with several high-ranking officials.
Stop there for a second. That is massive.
It's monumental. This isn't a border skirmish. This is what military analysts call a decapitation strike.
Right.
The whole goal is to remove the command and control structure of the adversary entirely. Just wipe it out. Historically, these kinds of strikes are massive gambles. You are betting that by removing the head out, the body just stops fighting. But in this region, the body usually thrashes.
And the thrashing has clearly started. The retaliation has been immediate. But here is what confuses me, and I think a lot of people reading the headlines are confused by this too.
The targets.
Yeah. The reports mention Iran-linked forces are striking back, but they are targeting the UAE. Why the UAE? If the US and Israel are the ones launching the airstrikes, why are missiles flying towards Dubai and Abu Dhabi?
That is a great question, and it gets right to the heart of modern asymmetric warfare. Iran knows it cannot easily strike Washington, D.C.
Right, too far.
Striking Tel Aviv is possible, but Israel has the Iron Dome and the Aero defense systems, which are incredibly effective at intercepting those threats. But the UAE...
across the Gulf.
Exactly. It is a commercial hub. It's a partner to the West, and it hosts Western military assets. But crucially, it's a soft target with immense economic value.
So it's about hurting the global economy to make the West pay attention and back off.
Precisely. And for India, this is the critical detail. UAE is a major strategic partner, sure. But more than that, it is home to a massive chunk of the Indian diaspora.
Millions of people.
Millions. When missiles start flying towards Dubai and Abu Dhabi, it stops being a foreign war for India and instantly becomes a domestic crisis.
That brings us to the Indian reaction in the source material. We saw Prime Minister Modi chairing an emergency session of the Cabinet Committee on Security, or the CCS, late last night.
Yes.
Now, usually these statements are full of diplomatic fluff, the standard we urge restraint or we call for dialogue, that sort of thing. But what stands out to me in the official statements is the specific wording. India strongly condemned the attacks on the UAE.
That phrasing is very deliberate. You have to read the tea leaves of diplomacy here. Nothing is accidental.
Break it down for me then. Why does the word condemned matter so much in this context?
Historically, India maintains a posture of strategic autonomy. We don't like to pick sides in great power conflicts. We stayed neutral on Ukraine for a very long time. We try to balance relationships with everyone.
Right.
But here you see a slight shift. By specifically condemning the attacks on the UAE, India is prioritizing the safety of its commercial interests and its citizens over strict neutrality.
So it's not necessarily saying we support the US or Israel, but it is definitely siding against the disruption of the Gulf.
Precisely. It's a way of taking a stand against the instability without necessarily signing up for the entire U.S.-Israel military agenda. It's a clear signal to Tehran saying you have a fight with America, fine. But if you target the hub, where 3.5 million Indians live and work, we have a serious problem.
It's a huge tightrope walk. You mentioned the diaspora, so let's talk about the human cost here, because the numbers in the sources are staggering. We aren't just talking about abstract geopolitical chess pieces. We're talking about regular people stranded at airports.
The airspace chaos is extensive. Major hubs like Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Doha have completely suspended flights. Our sources mention very specific groups. For example, there are 84 MBA students from Pune stuck in Dubai right now.
Wow.
There are 150 students from Karnataka stranded.
I can't even imagine the panic. You know, you're a student, maybe it's your first international trip, and suddenly the airspace is closed and you're hearing sirens and news about war.
And that's just the students. Think about the thousands of Indian laborers and professionals who live there full time. The sources talk about the blue-collar workers who build those incredible skylines. They are incredibly vulnerable right now. And then, of course, you have the high-profile cases.
Right. I saw a report in the stack about actress Esha Gupta and others being stuck in luxury hotels, literally hearing missile intercepts overhead. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And this ripple effect is reaching home too. It's not just happening over there.
No, the domestic security implications are immediate. The death of a massive figure like Ayatollah Khamenei has deep religious and political reverberations globally, and that absolutely includes India.
We are already seeing protests.
Yes, specifically in Srinagar. The authorities have actually sealed Lal Chowk and closed schools in Kashmir for 2 days.
Is that just precautionary, or is there a specific threat?
It's standard operating procedure in the valley during high-tension events in the Muslim world. But it just shows how interconnected these things really are. A military strike in Tehran closes a primary school in Srinagar.
It's all connected, and there are disturbing reports from the border as well, right?
Yes, the Indian army intercepted a drone at the line of control in Poonch.
Now, drones at the border aren't exactly a new phenomenon, unfortunately, but the timing feels incredibly suspicious.
Security analysts often call this testing the fences. When the world's attention is totally fixed on a massive crisis, like Iran, adversarial elements in this case, likely from across the western border, try to probe for weaknesses.
Because they think everyone is looking the other way.
Exactly. They assume we are distracted. They assume the CCS is looking at the Gulf and not at the Lakshi.
But the interception itself proves we were looking.
It does. It shows the vigilance on the ground is still very high.
So just to recap the chaos for you, we have a massive war, abroad citizens stranded in transit, and major security alerts at home. That is the backdrop for what happened on Monday morning in the financial markets. They are literally calling it Black Monday.
And for very good reason. The markets absolutely hate uncertainty, and war is the ultimate uncertainty.
Let's look at the actual numbers from the market reports we have here. The Sensex crashed over 1,600 points. The Nifty broke the 200-day simple moving average. Now, I'm not a technical analyst, but I know when people start talking about the 200 DMA, it's usually not a good sign. Why is that specific line on a chart so important?
It sounds like high school math homework, doesn't it? But think of the 200-day moving average as the absolute floor of the house. It represents the average price investors have been willing to pay over the last year. It's the long-term trend line. It's the psychological safety net for the entire market.
So what happens when you break the floor?
You fall into the basement. When the index crashes through that level, it signals a major shift in long-term sentiment. It goes from bullish, meaning optimistic, to bearish. But more importantly, a lot of modern trading isn't done by humans. It's done by algorithms, robots.
The machine's taking over.
Yes. And these algorithms are programmed with very strict unemotional rules. One of those rules is often a simple code. If Nifty drops below 200 DMA, execute a sell order. So when that line is crossed, it triggers a cascade of automated selling. That's why you see these sheer vertical drops. It's not just humans panicking, it's machines executing programmed exit strategies in milliseconds.
And where's all that money going? If they're selling millions of shares of stock, are they just holding cash in a bank account?
Some cash, yes, but mostly they are fleeing to perceived safety. Gold.
Gold surged to 1,38,592 rupees for 8 grams. That number is just insane.
It's the classic fear trade. When the world looks like it's ending, people don't want paper promises. They want hard physical assets. They want metal. Meanwhile, look at oil. Brent crude spiked to $79 a barrel.
That's the war tax, right?
Exactly. Every single time there was tension in the Strait of Hormuz,
Yeah.
the price of everything involves a premium because physical shipping becomes risky. Insurance rates for tankers skyrocket.
What's fascinating to me, though, looking at the sectoral divide, is that not everyone lost money on Monday. If you held stocks in Larsen and Tubro, you took a hit. L&T was down 5%, which makes sense because they build massive infrastructure projects in the Gulf. If the Gulf is under attack, those projects are at risk.
Precisely. L&T acts as a bit of a proxy for Gulf stability for Indian investors.
But look at the winners on Monday. Defense stocks, Hindustan Aeronautics Limited, Farad Electronics Limited, HAL and BEL zoomed up to 13%.
That feels quite cynical, doesn't it?
It really does. It feels like the collective market is saying world war is starting, so let's buy weapon stocks to make a profit.
It is cynical.
Yeah.
But it's also just the cold, hard logic of capital markets. Investors are betting that this conflict will force India and really the rest of the world to spend heavily on military readiness. It's a bet on a much more dangerous future. If drones are flying over Poonch and missiles are flying over Dubai, governments are going to buy more radars, more interceptors, and more fighter jets. HAL and BEL make that exact hardware.
So that's the panic. That's the Black Monday narrative that dominated the headlines. But here is where it gets really interesting. And this is why we do this deep dive, because if you just stop at the headlines, you miss the massive undercurrents. If you look away from the red ticker tape and look at the government documents we have, specifically the Press Information Bureau release on the Union Budget 2026-27, there is a completely different story being told.
This is the counter narrative. This is the signal amidst all that noise. While the immediate market is panicking about an external war, the structural reforms in the budget are quietly trying to build a fortress for the Indian economy internally.
The major theme here seems to be ease of doing business, but not just as a political slogan on a billboard. It feels more desperate. Or perhaps urgent is the better word.
Urgent is definitely the right word. The government realizes that in a world this volatile horse, you simply cannot afford to have internal friction. You have to grease the wheels of commerce.
Right, let's dig into the specifics of that. The budget is talking about liberalization for PRIs. Now, I actually had to look this up. PROI stands for persons resident outside India.
Erect, non-residents.
The budget has increased the limit they can invest in Indian companies up to 10% under the portfolio investment scheme. Translate that for us. Why does that seemingly small percentage change matter?
Think about the investor psychology we just discussed, with the machines selling off. They are scared. They want to pull money out of emerging markets. By increasing this limit and simplifying the process, the government is trying to make it easier for foreign individuals, not just big, massive institutions, but wealthy individuals, to keep or put their money in India. It's about deepening the pool of available capital when institutional money might be fleeing.
So inviting more foreign retail money in directly to counteract the institutional outflow.
Exactly. It adds a layer of buoyancy. But the bigger reform, the one that corporate India will absolutely love, and the one that actually addresses a huge historical pain point, is regarding the ET, the minimum alternate tax.
Oh, the dreaded MAT. I've heard business leaders complain about this for literally years. It always sounded like a trap to me.
It frankly felt like one to a lot of companies. The original concept was sound. The idea was that highly profitable companies shouldn't be able to use an endless string of clever accounting deductions to pay zero tax. Fair enough, everyone should pay something. But the implementation became a nightmare of endless litigation. You'd think you were fully compliant, and then 5 years later, you get a massive notice in the tax department recalculating your MAT.
So what exactly changed in this new budget?
The budget proposes reducing the MAN rate to 14% and crucially making it a final tax.
Final tax. That sounds like they are trying to just stop the endless court battles.
That is exactly the goal. Final means the file is actually closed. No retrospective demands. No dragging a CEO to a tribunal a decade later. It fundamentally enhances tax certainty. And in business, certainty is worth its weight in gold. Even gold at 1.38 lakh.
True. Speaking of killing uncertainty and delays, let's talk about the bureaucracy at the borders. I was reading about the single window system for cargo clearance in the budget notes. It explicitly says clearance will happen immediately after online registration. That sounds incredibly optimistic.
It sounds revolutionary if they can actually pull it off on the ground. They're moving to a clear first pay later model for customs duties.
Wait, clear first, pay later. That sounds like the exact opposite of how governments usually work. Usually it's pay me every single rupee right now, then I'll think about letting your container go.
Exactly. This is a massive philosophical shift from the old license Raj mentality, where a customs officer would essentially hold your imported goods hostage at the port until every penny was accounted for and every single paper form was stamped 3 times in triplicate. Now they're saying, we trust you. Clear the goods, get the raw materials to your factory, keep your assembly line running, and people employed. We will settle the actual tax bill later digitally.
That word trust keeps coming up in these documents. Trust-based governance.
It's a complete paradigm shift for the Indian state, and it ties perfectly into the decriminalization efforts, specifically the Jan Vishwas Act mentioned in the sources.
I really love the analogy one of our sources used here. It's like removing speed bumps on a national highway.
It's a perfect analogy. Before this, if you made a minor technical default as a business owner, say filing a specific form late, or having a small typo in a ledger, or forgetting to formally notify a specific department about a minor board change, you could theoretically face actual jail time.
Jail time for a paperwork typo. That's wild.
Yes. Now, it was rarely enforced with actual prison sentences, but the threat was always there. It was the sword hanging over every single entrepreneur's head. The local inspector could always threaten you with it. The Jan Vishwas Act is systematically decriminalizing hundreds of these minor civil and clerical offenses. Now, if you mess up the paperwork, you just pay a financial penalty. You don't go to prison.
It fundamentally changes the psychology of the entrepreneur. You don't want business owners constantly looking over their shoulders, fearing criminal prosecution for clerical errors when they should be focused on growing the business.
Exactly. You want them taking business risks, not worrying about compliance traps.
So bringing this back to the macro picture, we have the stock market crashing because of the Iran war, but the government is aggressively pushing these internal reforms right now. Why now? Is it just a coincidence of timing?
I don't believe in coincidences in grand strategy or policy. It's about building resilience. The government knows they cannot control what happens in Tehran or Tel Aviv. They can't stop a U.S. airstrike. But they absolutely can control how resilient the domestic economy is by making it easier to do business, by reducing that friction, by establishing trust. They are trying to ensure that when these massive global shocks hit, like the one you're seeing today, the Indian economy is robust enough to absorb the blow and just keep growing.
It's about building a ship that can handle rough seas because you simply can't control the weather outside.
Beautifully put, yes.
Yeah.
It's about the Viksit Bharat 2047 vision. It's playing the long game while everyone else is panicking over the short term.
The long game. That is a perfect segue to our next major topic from the stack. While the Middle East is burning, and while we are fortifying our internal economy, India is also looking west, but much further west, to Canada.
This is the diplomatic reset we have been waiting for. And frankly, reading through the stack, it's one of the most surprising turns of events.
We have extensive reports and press releases of Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney visiting India. This is a huge deal considering how incredibly icy things were just a couple of years ago.
Icy is putting it mildly. The relationship was locked in a deep freeze during the Trudeau era. We had the tit-for-tat expulsions of senior diplomats, the total suspension of visa services for a while, the explosive public accusations regarding Hardeep Singh Nijjar. It was arguably the lowest point in India-Canada relations in modern history.
But now Mark Carney is physically in Delhi, and the visuals, the optics of the visit are very different. We see him arriving in Mumbai, first meeting with top business leaders. It feels less like a tense political summit and more like a CEO roadshow.
That's because Mark Carney is essentially a CEO of the economy. Remember his background. He isn't a career politician in the traditional glad-handing sense. He's a central banker at his core. He was the highly respected governor of the Bank of England, and before that, the governor of the Bank of Canada.
Right, so he speaks the language of interest rates and trade flows, not just local poll numbers and vote banks.
Exactly. He speaks the universal language of economics. And when he looks at India, he doesn't just see a political issue to manage back home in specific constituencies. He sees a $5 trillion economy that is incredibly hungry for natural resources. And Canada has those resources in abundance.
The press releases say they are formally launching negotiations for a CEPA, a comprehensive economic partnership agreement. And the stated goal is massive, doubling bilateral trade to $70 billion by 2030. But what really caught my eye in the source material is the energy angle, specifically the uranium deal.
This is the real headline grabber of the trip. A massive $2.8 billion deal for Cameco Corporation to supply uranium to India.
Why is this specific deal so significant right now? We have nuclear agreements with other countries, right? We
Ooh.
buy uranium from elsewhere.
We do. But think about the geopolitics we just discussed with the war. India has a massive, ambitious nuclear energy expansion plan to meet climate goals and power the manufacturing push. We absolutely need fuel. We used to rely heavily on Russia for many of our strategic needs, including nuclear fuel and technology. But look at Russia now. It's heavily sanctioned by the West, it's bogged down in its own conflicts, it's volatile, and frankly, it's increasingly becoming a junior partner to China.
So relying on Russia for the next 50 years of energy is risky.
Extremely risky. If you are India, you cannot afford to rely on what is effectively becoming a Chinese vassal state for your critical baseload energy needs. You need to diversify your supply chains. You need a stable, democratic, predictable partner. Canada is a G7 and NATO country. It has vast, high-quality uranium reserves in Saskatchewan, and it needs reliable buyers. It's a completely natural fit.
It's amazing how mutual economic needs suddenly makes intractable political problems seemingly disappear.
Money is the ultimate diplomatic solvent.
And it's not just physical uranium coming in, it's raw capital too. The sources mention Canadian pension funds quite prominently.
Canadian pension funds are absolute behemoths in global finance. The CPP, the Canada Pension Plan, the OTP, the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. We are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars in assets under management. And the report notes they already have about $100 billion either invested or committed to Indian infrastructure.
That's serious real world money, not just portfolio investment.
It's patient money. That's the key difference.
Oh.
Pension funds don't flip tech stocks like day traders on Robinhood. They invest in physical toll roads, massive airports, renewable energy parks, things that take 20 or 30 years to generate a full payoff. India desperately needs patient capital to build out its physical infrastructure. Canada has that massive pool of capital that needs reliable long-term yield to pay its retirees. It's a perfect marriage of structural convenience.
But what about the elephant in this room? The Niger shadow, as the papers call it. The assassination controversy hasn't just vanished into thin air, has it?
No, the core issue hasn't vanished. But the focus of the bilateral relationship has completely shifted. The briefing notes we have deliberately emphasize economic complementarities and mutual respect.
That sounds like carefully crafted diplomatic code.
Oh, it absolutely is. It's
Yep.
code for compartmentalization. Is both governments quietly agreeing to say, look, we clearly have deep disagreements on certain security and diaspora issues, and we will handle those through intelligence and channels quietly. But let's not let those specific disagreements stop us from making billions of dollars in mutually beneficial trade.
It's a very pragmatic pivot. It's almost Kissinger-esque in its realism.
It is. And it shows that under the new Carney leadership in Canada, and given the strategic imperatives facing India right now, ideology and diaspora politics are taking a backseat to hard economics.
Okay, so we've covered hot war market crashes and a major trade deal. Now I want to pivot to something in the stack that feels totally different but is happening right alongside all of this real world drama. Let's look up. Literally. Because while all this human geopolitical drama is unfolding, the cosmos is putting on a show of its own.
And causing quite a bit of administrative confusion on the ground, I might add.
We have reports of a total lunar eclipse, a blood moon, occurring on the exact same day as Holi, March 3rd, 2026. The sources say this alignment hasn't happened in about 100 years.
It's a very rare celestial alignment. But in India, astronomy almost never exists in a purely scientific vacuum. It always immediately intersects with astrology, religion, and deep-rooted cultural tradition.
The specific conflict outlined here is between the Sutak period and the timing of Holika Dahan. For you listening who might not know, or who might just be wondering why your local temple schedule is suddenly all messed up this week, can you explain the exact nature of this conflict?
Sure. In traditional Vedic astrology, the Sutak is considered an inauspicious period leading up to and during the actual duration of an eclipse. It's traditionally believed that the atmosphere is spiritually contaminated during this window.
Bad vibes, basically.
Extremely bad vibes. During this specific time, temples close their doors, the idols are physically covered. Cooking is often avoided, and generally you absolutely do not start anything new or sacred. The massive logistical problem is Holika Dahan, The ritual burning of the bonfire to signify the victory of good over evil is supposed to happen on this specific evening based on the lunar calendar.
So you have the vibrant festival of colors and sacred fire directly colliding with the one inauspicious eclipse window where you explicitly aren't supposed to light sacred fires or perform rituals.
Exactly. And the real world impact is significant. Major temples are closing their doors. Complex rituals are being rapidly rescheduled to either just before sunrise or late at night, long after the eclipse fully passes. The public confusion is so widespread that the Uttar Pradesh government actually declared a 3-day public holiday just to manage the logistical chaos and crowd control around the major temple towns.
It's such a uniquely Indian administrative problem to have. Sorry, we have to officially reschedule the massive bonfire and close the schools because the moon is turning red and the timing is off.
It really is a testament to how deeply these traditions run.
But at the exact same time, and this is the incredible contrast I love in the source material, we have the scientific angle. ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization, isn't taking a holiday for Sutak.
Not at all. While the temple doors are locked down, ISRO's Aditya L1 spacecraft is up there right now actively observing solar flares. And remember, from a purely scientific standpoint, during an eclipse, observing the sun's corona and solar activity is a crucial opportunity.
And they're also working on the Gaganyaan mission, right?
Yes, the reports note they are conducting critical parachute drop tests
Yeah.
for the crew module. So you have this truly beautiful duality. You can stand outside, look up at the red blood moon, and think about the ancient mythological demons and the Sutak restrictions. Or you can look up and think about the Gaganyaan astronauts and complex orbital mechanics. And the fascinating thing is, both realities are true and coexisting in India at the exact same time.
That is the perfect definition of modern India. A highly trained rocket scientist who successfully launches a deep space satellite in the morning and then meticulously checks the astrological almanac for an auspicious time to enter his new house in the evening.
Precisely. We comfortably live in multiple centuries simultaneously.
And speaking of modern technology clashing with tradition, or in this next case, clashing heavily with the law, we absolutely have to talk about the Supreme Court and artificial intelligence.
This story in the legal stack is just wild, and it serves as a massive warning sign for the near future.
The Supreme Court officially flagged a lower trial court judgment. Why? Because the trial court judge used AI-generated fake judgments as actual legal precedent in a ruling.
It's the dangerous phenomenon known as AI hallucination.
Walk us through how this actually happens in practice. A judge is sitting there writing a verdict, and then what?
Right, so the judge, or perhaps the clerk or the lawyer who submitted the original brief, decides to use a generative AI tool like ChatGPT or a specialized legal AI assistant to do their case law research quickly. They probably typed in a prompt like, find me high court cases where a commercial tenant was evicted for this specific reason. The AI, being a large language model, is fundamentally designed to predict the next mathematically plausible word. It desperately wants to give you a highly satisfying and relevant answer. So if it can't find a real case that matches perfectly, it sometimes just invents one out of whole cloth.
It just makes it up completely.
Yeah. It makes it up completely. It will invent realistic sounding case names like Smith versus the state of Punjab 2024. It will invent volume and page numbers for the legal citations. It will even invent highly eloquent quotes from real judges who never actually said those words. It looks 100% authentic on the printed page, but it is 100% pure fiction.
And the Supreme Court obviously was not amused by this shortcut.
Far from it. They came down hard. They ruled that this isn't just a simple clerical error. They officially labeled it as misconduct.
Misconduct. That's a very heavy legal word. It implies negligence or intent, not just a mistake.
It is a heavy word. And this entire fiasco raises such an important question about our blind reliance on new tech. Think about it. We just spent 20 minutes dissecting the union budget, pushing for rapid digitization, the single window clearance system, the ease of doing business. We desperately want technology to speed things up. We want to automate sluggish bureaucracy.
But here, technology is literally fabricating the justice system.
Exactly. It's a massive warning shot across the bow. Digitization is fantastic for high volume efficiency. Clearing cargo containers, filing GST returns, processing digital payments. AI is great for that. But when it comes to human judgment, to the nuanced application of law, to critical analytical thinking, you simply cannot automate it blindly. We want the ease of doing business. Yes, but the Supreme Court is saying we absolutely cannot sacrifice the fundamental integrity of the justice system just for the sake of speed.
It's the vital difference between processing vast amounts of data and actually discerning the truth. AI is incredibly good at arranging data, but it fundamentally has no concept of truth.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
Yeah.
And in a legal system, objective truth based on precedent is the only thing that actually matters.
It's a fascinating tension between speed and accuracy. Okay.
Yeah.
We've had global war economic crashes, diplomatic pivots, celestial eclipses, and legal AI hallucinations. My brain is getting full. We definitely need a morale boost. And looking at the cultural sources in India, that usually comes from one of two places: cricket or cinema.
Well, mostly cricket this week. The cinema news is a bit mixed.
Let's start with the big win then, the T20 World Cup. India versus the West Indies in Kolkata, the Super 8 stage.
This was an incredibly high-stakes match. A loss here would have made the mathematical path to the semifinals very difficult for India. And the hero of the night was somewhat unexpected. Sanju Samson.
Sanju Samson, the myth, the incredibly talented but constantly dropped player, finally getting his undeniable moment on the global stage.
And what a massive moment it was. An unbeaten 97 runs off just 50 balls.
That is a phenomenal strike rate, almost 200.
Chasing down a target of 196 is never an easy task, especially against the West Indies, who are essentially T20 specialists. They have massive power hitters all the way down their batting order, but Samson just made it look effortless. He perfectly anchored the innings and accelerated at the exact right moments.
I do have to laugh at one specific detail in the post-match reports, though. The veteran commentators Gavaskar and Shastri were constantly complaining on air about the laser shows at Eden Gardens.
It's the classic generational divide in cricket broadcasting. The tournament organizers are desperately trying to make it a massive entertainment spectacle. Flashing lights, green lasers, loud DJ music between every single over. It's the total IPLification of international cricket.
And the old school purists are just not having any of it.
No, not at all. Gavaskar and Shastri are basically yelling on the mic saying, "Stop distracting the players." It's a serious cricket match, not a nightclub disco. Let them focus on the ball.
But hey, if Sanju Samson can score an unbeaten 97 with green lasers literally flashing in his eyes, maybe the lasers are actually good luck.
Maybe they are. We secured a spot in the semifinals, so I don't think anyone should complain too much about the lighting choices.
Fair enough. Now flipping over to the entertainment section of our sources. The big Viraj wedding.
Rashmika Mandanna and Vijay Deverakonda, the ultimate Southern power couple tying the knot.
Getting married in Udaipur, it looks
Yeah.
like the ultimate lavish fairy tale wedding. The drone photos in the press are absolutely stunning. But the contrast I found when reading the entire news stack together is deeply jarring.
How so?
Well, you have this incredibly lavish wedding in Udaipur, grand heritage palaces, exotic flowers flown in everywhere, celebrities dancing. And at the exact same moment, on the exact same news feed, you have Bollywood celebrities like Esha Gupta and Nargis Fakhri stuck in lockdown hotels in Dubai.
Hearing actual anti-air missile intercepts.
Exactly. It's this incredibly surreal blend of high glamour and mortal danger. You're casually scrolling your social media feed on your phone, and it's literally wedding photo missile strike in the Gulf War update, another wedding photo.
That right there is the quintessential human experience of 2026. The hyper-connected nature of our world means you simply can't isolate the joy from the terror anymore. They sit right next to each other on your glowing screen. It creates this weird, exhausting emotional whiplash. You're genuinely happy for the glamorous couple 1 second, and then terrified for the fate of the world the very next second.
And maybe that constant distraction or that deep emotional exhaustion is exactly why the box office numbers are suffering this week. The reports show The Careless Story 2 is significantly underperforming compared to the massive original.
It could definitely be general audience fatigue, sure. Sequels are always tough.
Right.
But I think you're right about the broader macro context. The first movie came out in a very different cultural time now. When the actual real-world news on your phone is as highly dramatic as a looming Iran-Israel war and as volatile as a Black Monday market crash, people might just not have the mental bandwidth for a heavy 2-hour movie that deals with dark political and social themes.
Reality is just way too heavy right now. People probably want pure escapism, not a reflection of more conflict.
Exactly. They'd rather watch Sanju Samson hit massive sixes or look at beautiful Udaipur wedding photos than go to a dark theater to watch a gritty political drama. They need a break.
So what does this all actually mean for you, the learner? We've gone through the entire massive stack, March 1st to 3rd, 2026. It really feels like a perfect microcosm of modern India.
It really does. If you step back from the individual headlines and look at the synthesis of all these concurrent stories, You clearly see a nation that is constantly navigating massive contradictory forces.
On one hand, we are undeniably vulnerable. A war erupts in West Asia, and immediately it sends our domestic stock markets crashing and strands thousands of our citizens in airports. We are heavily exposed to global oil price shocks. We are exposed to the geopolitical whims of the US and Iran.
That is entirely true. We are deeply integrated into the global system, so we inevitably feel the world's pain. But on the other hand, look at the proactive response. The government isn't just sitting back and reacting to the panic. They are actively restructuring. The budget reforms we discussed, the widespread decriminalization, the simplified foreign investment norms, the MAT tax certainty, these are all active, calculated attempts to build robust internal resilience.
So, the underlying philosophy is basically the outside world is inherently dangerous and unpredictable. So, let's make our own internal house as structurally strong as possible.
Exactly. And you see it in the diplomatic pivot too. If the Middle East is historically unstable, we aggressively reset relations with Canada, we secure long-term uranium deals, we invite pension fund capital, we actively diversify our global partners, we deliberately don't put all our strategic eggs in one unpredictable basket.
And on a social level, we constantly balance the ancient and the futuristic. We literally pause daily life for a celestial eclipse, but we simultaneously launch deep space rockets. We fight against AI hallucinations corrupting our courts, but we eagerly use digital single window systems to clear port customs. It's a messy, chaotic, but incredibly resilient system.
It's the Indian system. It bends under pressure, it stretches, it gets highly stressed out, but it fundamentally doesn't break.
And despite the terrifying Black Monday crash we started with, that underlying structural resilience is exactly why the long term view in these economic reports remains surprisingly optimistic.
I completely agree. The foundational fundamentals of the economy are being quietly fixed, even if the surface waters are incredibly stormy right now.
But before we wrap up, I have to leave you, the listener, with a thought that's been really nagging me since we started prepping this deep dive. We talked a lot about India's doctrine of strategic autonomy, that historical ability to stay entirely neutral and just do profitable business with everyone.
Yes, it's our core doctrine.
But with the US and Israel openly engaging Iran in a hot war right now and our massive diaspora caught literally in the crossfire of those missiles, will India eventually be forced to finally choose the definitive side? Can we actually maintain this strategic autonomy when our own citizens are the ones stranded in the active war zone?
That is the ultimate provocative question going forward. The new trade deal with Canada heavily suggests that diversifying partners is our chosen safety net. We are desperately trying to have good friends absolutely everywhere so we don't have to definitively choose sides anywhere. But if the world aggressively splits back into hard, uncompromising blocks, say a US-Israel bloc versus an Iran-China-Russia bloc, that middle path of neutrality gets narrower and narrower every single day.
A rapidly narrowing path on a very fast spinning globe.
Good.
Well, if you're in the right time zone tonight, take a moment and look up at that red blood moon. It's a pretty good reminder that some things in this universe are still much bigger than stock markets and border wars.
And certainly much bigger than our daily news anxieties.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us on this absolute whirlwind tour of the first week of March 2026. It's been a very heavy week of news, but hopefully we helped you make some sense of the underlying signals. Keep exploring these topics on your own, and we will see you in the next deep dive.
Okay, everyone.